Hello and welcome to the Tarkus Zone. Thank you for joining me. Today we're going to be doing a video to go into my playlist for gardening by the yard that I've been doing. I haven't done a video in some time for that particular topic or segment, and I wanted to talk about chickens because a lot of people are kind of on the fence about should they get backyard chickens or should they just buy from the grocery store. Now, chickens, just like any other animal that lives within your proximity or you need to care for, do require some time, just like a dog does or a cat does. But the reality, chickens are kind of simple though. I mean, I think a hamster or a goldfish you'll spend more time dealing with that than you would be dealing with chickens if you actually do it right. So I'm going to go over some topics here during this video about chickens, and you can make a decision at the end of the video if chickens are going to be for you or not. I showed this picture right off the bat. This is a flock of chickens. There's a variety of different kinds of chickens within this flock, but the thing that you need to see that is on the ground is it looks like somebody threw some cabbage for these chickens. Well, that's the thing about chickens is they pretty much eat anything, and not a lot of things harm them. And I'm going to start listing some things that I do and I haven't seen any ill effects to. Anytime that I have any produce on the property, I feed it to the chickens. I throw it over the chicken fence and the chickens eat it. Anytime I got weeds when I weed a garden, I throw all the weeds to the chickens and the chickens eat it. Now, that is one great way to get rid of weeds, scraps, anything, even if you're collecting lawn clippings. If you give them to the chickens will eat them. And what's great about it is there's so much moisture in that types of vegetation that their eggs are larger. And we have beautiful eggs here that we produce. I mean, some people even say they look like they're duck eggs. They're so big. And that's because we recycle everything on my property and then we give it to the chickens. Now, you know, there are some people that will say don't give them bread, don't give them cereals, whatnot. I give them a little bit of that. We have, if food hits the floor of the house, because I have a child, sometimes food hits the floor, we collect it, give it to the chickens. I have never seen any ill effect by giving chickens anything, any scraps that we might have off the kitchen table. I even given them mozzarella sticks. I've even given them pizza. I mean, it just seems like anything that a canine would eat, chickens eat. And I've never really had any ill effects by doing that. With that said, you might want to if you're just starting in with chickens, you might just want to give them the vegetation scraps that you've got. I mean, I've got a neighbor who does cucumbers, and he brings me all his damaged cucumbers, and I give them to the chickens. It's just chickens are a wonderful way to compost stuff. And what's great about it is over a couple years, you can go into the chicken coop, like the area that you see in this picture, and start digging up the material and moving it to garden beds, because it's going to be very high in nutrients because the chickens have been scratching it and pooping on it and whatnot. Now, that's the other thing I want to show you in this video. Wherever a chicken lives, there's not going to be any living vegetation. And people get confused about that. That if I put my chickens in a 12 by 12 enclosed space on my lawn, okay, it will not take long for that 12 by 12 space to have no lawn in it, no grass in it. Because chickens, that's all they have to do. They got is time, right? And what chickens do is they eat vegetation, but they also dig it up. So they'll claw the ground and pull the roots to even get that. And what does a chicken got all day to do is just claw and eat, and that's all it does. So any paddock that you make for your chickens, they're going to devastate any vegetation in that area. They're going to eat it, they're going to dig it up. That's just the reality of it. It's just going to be a dead zone. And this person has cleaned up their dead zone by putting some hay down, as you can see. Well, let's move on to another picture here. I collected some pictures. Well, why is it not allowing me to move the picture forward? There we go. So, this is a roost. When we talk about chickens and housing chickens, you know, I have a few videos here that will show you coops and some of them are nice coops, some of them are just basic coops. But the reality is the structure could be whatever you want it to be, as long as you can keep them out of the wind, the rain, and snow, and enclose them. I mean, I've seen people take just old 4x4 sheds that somebody built for a garbage shed. You know what I mean? They used to put the garbage barrels in there, and then they don't do that anymore. They just converted it into a chicken coop. And this roost system is a typical roost system that you see. Chickens will always try to go to the highest point in your structure. That's their program genetically to do that, and that's so that predators don't eat them. So what they do is they systematically will climb a structure, as you can see here, and they roost to the top. And when I say roost, that's while they're sleeping. If you ever heard the term, a chicken will come home to roost, that means that once a chicken has slept in a area for a couple weeks, it will always go back to that area. So you could open all the doors in the buildings, let them roam around your property, easy peasy, and at night they will come back to that place where they sleep, their roost. They always will. And they're just programmed to do that. So don't get upset if you have an enclosed structure and one chicken gets out and you think you've got to catch it somehow. Well, you don't. Just right before dusk, open the door. All the chickens might come out for a second, but then they'll all go back in to get on the roost. That's just the reality of chickens. They always come home to roost. Always. Okay, here's a couple chickens here. As you can see, as I mentioned before, all the grass that is in the chicken coop is dead. They just will tear it up. That's the reality. And what they'll do is if they can get their heads through that fencing, they'll eat all the vegetation that they can reach through the fencing. Okay, this is a very basic chicken coop. This chicken coop will probably house 2 chickens. It's very small, and what's great about this chicken coop that you see here is it's portable. So when they start digging the ground that you can see that they can get at, the person can just pick the unit up and move it. I imagine that somehow they get the chickens out. My guess is there's a door on the other side. They'll open the door, grab the chickens, or maybe just let the chickens out for the day, and then just move this structure 5-6 feet to the left or to the right, okay, shoo the chickens back in, or just wait for them to come home to roost and close the door again, and then they've got a fresh grassy area that they can eat for a few days. You know, it doesn't take a chicken long to eat all the grass, but this is a portable one. This is somebody who wants to fertilize and just have a constant feed of grass to their chickens. And in this situation, sometimes people don't even give them chicken pellets during this period because they got all the grass they can eat. They get flies, they get bugs. That's just that's what some people might do. I always make sure that my chickens have food. I always make sure that they've got as much food as they want to eat. Now this is a more advanced one. Again, this is somewhat portable. As you can see, the ground is open. I guess if you put a rope on this and pull it with a 4-wheeler, you could probably move it a few feet to move that grassy spot. And this coop, I would say probably 5 to 6 birds would fit comfortably in this coop. Some people will do overkill. Like, for example, you got a coop this size, they put 30 birds in there. That is the worst thing you can do because birds or chickens are very hierarchy, meaning that they like to beat on each other. And if you cram them together, they do a lot of beating on each other. So I always tell people, try to give each bird 3 to 4 feet. So if you were to put the bird in one spot, make sure there's not another bird 3 to 4 feet and 3 to 4 feet so that they have room to just be chickens. Because if they're crammed together, they'll just beat on each other. And every chicken flock has a hierarchy. There's one chicken in charge, and that chicken kind of rules the roost, as they would say. And you'll see them, and most chickens will follow that chicken. And they'll, in some in hierarchies, that chicken might be the head of the flock for a couple years, but then some other chicken, younger chicken, will take a head of the flock. But there's a pecking order is basically what I'm saying. All chickens have it. So when you introduce chickens to chickens, meaning that let's say you have chickens already and you went out and got 2 more chickens. Well, there's going to be a very stressful period when you introduce those two new chickens, because you've just messed up the dynamic, and those two new chickens are going to get the heck beat out of them. They just are. It's called establishing the pecking order, where they fall within the pecking order. There's a lot of people who would suggest that those two new chickens, you put them in a separate cage, like a dog cage, a big dog cage. Put that dog cage within the structure so that the older birds can see the newer birds. You leave the newer birds in that cage with food and water for a couple days, so that the birds can see each other for a couple days, and then you introduce them to your flock. There are going to be other people that will say, well, you want to keep the two new chickens in quarantine to see what, if they're bringing in disease. I've never done that. I've always introduced my birds right off, the way I mentioned with the big dog cage. I put them in the dog cage. I let them see each other for a few days. I let them mingle together, and it works out. It just does. You can't do that trick with younger chicks or birds. You can't just take younger chicks that you buy in a store and put them into your chicken coop, because what's going to happen is the bigger birds will just kill them. So when it comes to chicks, you got to really make sure that they're large enough that they can be introduced to your flock without them being pecked to death. Just keep that in mind. All right, so this is another example of a roost. As you can see, the reason why it's angled the way it is so that they don't crap on each other. So, if there's chickens here, they're crapping down, and the thing about a roost is that's when they do a lot of their pooping, is when they're sitting on the roost. This is another simple one that can be moved around. This is maybe a 1 or 2 bird coop. The birds linger in the base here during the day. I mean, this one's a little small. That seems a little small to me. As you can see, this coop design, the guy tried to do the slats, right? But then the bird said, hey, I got a higher area, and it looks like he put some slats up here too at the top. But what's happening is all these birds up on the top are pooping on all these birds that are below them. And they're at the lower of the pecking order, so they got nowhere else to go but to be here. It's not like this bird at the bottom here is going to jump up to the top, because all those birds on the top are going to peck them until they leave, because of the pecking order. So you will always ask yourself, why do you got birds that are away from, or kind of like in the timeout zone? Well, it's because they're at the lowest end of the pecking order. Here's a nice coop. I like this coop. This is not a portable coop. I'm not really sure how they're keeping the grass green in there, or if this was just built and they haven't introduced birds yet. That would be my guess, because you put, this is probably a 12 to 14 bird coop. You put those many birds in there, they're just going to devour all that green grass that you see there. They're just going to do it. Here's an elongated one, a little bit bigger than the one we just saw before here. Here's a unique roost that someone made. As you can see, there's a ladder that's got to go up there, so that the predator or the fox or the coyote or whatever would have to figure out that it would need to walk up this narrow thing to get to the birds. And maybe they would. Actually, you see this? You don't even really need this. Chickens will jump that distance, easy peasy. That board there that's coming across, really not needed. That a chicken would jump up there without any, and then you would eliminate any predator problem. Here's one where they created one that using the walls or the corners of the coop. That's pretty neat. Here's that elongated one again, a better picture of it. So I did want to point out a few things, other things about chickens, is if you're handling chickens or you're doing anything with chickens, you want to make sure that you wash your hands thoroughly when you're done. When it comes to egg gathering, you don't really need to clean eggs. I mean, you don't have to run them under water and clean them. There is a, I don't remember the name of it, but there's a protective layer that goes around an egg, which kind of doesn't allow bacteria or anything to get inside the egg. And that protective layer could be destroyed if you run it underwater or if you clean the egg. Now, there's going to be times where you're going to have to clean the egg. If you want to eat the egg, I mean, it's just going to be nasty and goopy, and you're going to have to clean it. And you can do that. But if you've cleaned an egg with water or a brush, make sure it goes directly into the refrigerator so that it can't go spoil on you. and you should be fine. Those eggs that egg will last a month, 2 months. I mean, eggs are hard to spoil after you get them in the refrigerator. It's just that if you cleaned the egg using a brush or water and left it on the counter, well, that protective layer is gone. So there's nothing in nature that's going to help protect it. And the reason why that layer is there to protect the egg is because it takes 21 days for 22 something days for a chicken egg to hatch. So you want to make sure for the first 3 to 4 days of that egg being laid that, you know, some bacteria doesn't get in there and destroy the outcome of getting a chicken born. You know what I mean? So it's nature's way of preserving the egg, and it's on all eggs. Like in Europe, if you're selling eggs commercially, it's illegal to clean them. You do the best you can to get the crap off them, but you can't send them through an industrial cleaner. Here in the United States, they do that. They send it through an industrial cleaner, and it's all clean, and that's the way we do it. Now, salmonella is a big issue, and that's why you want to clean your hands when you're done. But the odds of you getting sick from salmonella or carrying salmonella into your flock, I just don't see that. I've had chickens going on 15 years and I don't have salmonella issues. I just use common sense cleaning practices. You know, I go in there with the hose into the chicken coop with the hose, you know, twice a year, spray it down, scrub the walls a little bit, make sure the roosts are clean. Always make sure your roosts are clean. And wherever they are going to roost, that's where your pile of poo is going to be. And that's where that's where they're going to poo the most, or in the most concentrated area. So just when you're designing your coop, that you're going to need to know that you got to get to that area where they're roosting to get it out, get the poo out. Now you could do that every single day, go in there and get the poo out. But with me in Vermont, I like the deep litter method, I guess is what they call it. What happens is I let the poop stack 6 to 7 inches. But my coop's huge, and it mounds there. But when winter comes around, I add a bunch of hay, straw, cedar, and I mix it all together. I mix it all together in that area with a rototiller, and then I just leave it. And what happens is during the winter time, that whole stuff that I just brewed up is going to start breaking down and decomposing. And when it's like 30 below zero out, it's going to still be decomposing, because that's what happens is it gets its own thermal layer and it heats up. That's what compost does when it decomposes. So it keeps your chicken coop warm for the winter time. And then in the springtime, you just rake it out and put it in your gardens where you want to grow stuff. And that's what I do. So I kind of don't do anything with my chicken poop at all until the springtime, because I like to use it to cause that decomposing effect so that the chicken coop remains warm in the wintertime. Well, I just wanted to stress with you that having chickens is easy. It's just if you know, if you've got 6 minutes out of your day, as long as they've got water, as long as they've got food, they will provide you delicious eggs. They will help you with your bug problems. They catch bugs. Now in the spring and in the fall, I like to let my chickens roam around my property. As long as you don't got a fox or something that's going to kill them, let them roam. Because what they're going to do is they're going to eat up the weed seeds in your garden, which is great. They're going to poo in your gardens. And this is in the springtime and fall. They're going to poo in your gardens. They're going to kind of rototill your gardens, and they're going to do a phenomenal job in controlling the insects. So in the springtime, I open up my coop. They roam the property freely. They get all the Japanese beetle larvae out of the ground, and then right as my gardens are being planted, I put them back into their large enclosure, and I don't let them out again until fall. And the reason for that is if I let them out, they would eat all my fresh vegetables that I planted. So that's the problem with chickens, is they don't determine what they shouldn't eat versus what they are going to want to eat. They just eat everything. So you can't have them roaming your property if you want to try to plant anything during the planting season. All right, well, thank you for watching my video. This has been the Tarkus Zone.